All right. Hello there, everyone. This is Doc. So you've already got a few people in the YouTubes. So you should be live any second. Hello, Beamsy. Oh, and to everyone out there, this is an open mic, regardless of if you're a creationist, a Christian, an atheist, whatever. Feel free to come join us. So, what do you think of the debate, Beamsy?
Painful.
That's how I felt just a little bit, yeah. Yeah. I don't think McQueen really answered your question.
Yeah, I wasn't asking about the trees. I was asking the particular aspect of there was a lithified layer of soil between lithified areas of ash. That was the interest part of it, not the trees. The aspect of the forest doesn't matter. It's the fact that it was ash.
So you're saying he missed the trees for the forest? Or wait, other way around, I guess. Yeah, so hey, Jackson.
Hey guys, I'm drinking a beer now that we're on a secular channel.
Fair. I'm going to be tucking into a hard lemonade here in a minute, too. So, I mean, you were... I mean, I know you weren't there, but any thoughts on the debate, Jackson?
Well, I thought, I mean, he's a nice guy, but I felt like he didn't answer a lot of my points that I said, especially in the first half.
Yeah, that's how McQueen seems to be in a lot of debates.
Yeah. But I did flub one thing up. I couldn't remember if deciduous trees or coniferous trees evolved first. That's my one big mistake of the debate that I cringe at.
Off the top of my head, I don't know myself. Is it coniferous trees?
I get a mix. Right now, I can't figure it out. I'm trying to think.
You know what? I'm curious. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I think it was coniferous trees that were first.
Yeah, I want to say it was.
The coniferous 310. Deciduous trees evolve. Okay. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so yeah, gymnosperms evolved first.
Yeah. And I thought it was a good part was when he said there are no turtle transitions, and I hit him with Papachilles and Odontochelys. I think that kind of caught him off guard.
Yeah, they are fairly new, aren't they?
I want to say Odontochelys maybe almost a decade ago that was discovered.
Oh, well, that's too recent for McQueen to know about.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Let's see. I was busy trying to get dinner during his opening. Did he bring up any sources that were earlier than the 90s?
I don't believe so. But I mean, you can't fault him for it. He's retired. He's older, you know.
I mean, I can fault him a bit.
Yeah.
I know a few retired professors who stay pretty up to date.
Well, yeah.
And just once again to the chat, this is an open mic. If you want, feel free to come on. All I ask is that you not be too rude. Don't care too much about swearing, but probably shouldn't do too much.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Beamsy, were you convinced that the flood happened?
What's a nice way I can put it?
Well, okay, there's a nice way to put it, and then there's the nicest way you could put it.
I was not convinced myself.
Let's see. I mean, I kind of challenged McQueen to a debate. Sounds like he's up for it, and Beamsy,
Yeah.
good to be my co-debater.
Well, my areas I'll be asking him is about ashfall and coccolithopause.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll probably be going with faunal distributions.
Well, I am a stratigraphist, so that is my area of expertise, so I might as well stick with it.
Yeah,
So how do you think I did? Like, I think I did decently. Like, what would you
yeah,
say?
I think you did okay.
Yeah.
Not sure I would have gone for the uh, like the bugs myself, but
Mhm.
that's just a personal taste thing.
Yeah. I just went for kind of the biological aspect of it because they say you don't have to bring, like Answers in Genesis says, you don't bring the bugs on the ark. So I figured he would have the same opinion. I guess he thinks they did. They can't really, they don't really have their story straight on that.
Yeah.
Oh, and a little thing in regards to koalas, they don't actually eat the leaves unless they're actually attached to the eucalyptus. If you take the eucalyptus leaves and put them onto a plate, they won't touch them.
See, I didn't know that actually. That's interesting.
I'm Australian, so I know a
Yeah.
little bit more about that.
Yeah.
They're actually the smoothest brained animal out there, and they are incredibly stupid.
Yeah. I know they're not very smart. Yeah. I think the
Also,
smallest
like
brain.
2/3 of them have chlamydia.
Oh yeah, they have chlamydia, and I think they have the smallest brain per body size of any mammal. Hey Taylor, what's going on?
Howdy, howdy. And
Right, but
well, we have at least one creationist agreeing more modern sources would be better. So that's good.
but for bugs not to be on the ark, they would have drowned. I don't understand how they wouldn't have.
Well, I mean, at least some insects can breathe underwater.
Well,
Do they
yeah.
claim like they just attach themselves to rafts or stuff like that?
I guess that's their argument. But then you have the
Yeah.
short-lived bugs that can't breed at sea that would die beforehand.
Yeah, and even if the eggs were immersed in water for a year, what are you going to do about the salted land after it? Because nothing would really grow in the soil for at least a decade.
Yeah, that's
at
probably.
least.
Yeah, the whole ecosystems, the whole biosphere is destroyed for who knows how long after that. I mean, there would be no recovering in 4,000 years, that's for sure.
I'm just being nice and saying a decade because we can actually clear up saline deluged land in about 15 years, but naturally it takes about 200 or 300.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently Sam in the chat is the head of stuff at Creation Research. I've seen some of your paleontologists / geologists streams with Donnie. Kind of actually working on a video right now, responding to one of them. I can't say I'm too impressed, sadly.
Did you guys see, this is kind of unrelated. You guys see Peru cetus? I assume you guys know about it by now. What?
Sorry, girlfriend was blowing her nose right as I unmuted. Yeah, I did hear about it. The new fattest whale, hypothetically.
Yeah. They're probably embellishing a little bit, but it may be heavier than the blue whale.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's too fragmentary to really say for sure.
Yeah.
But so apparently the body was going into the side of a hill, so there might be more out there. We just have to give it some time.
Yeah.
It might have more mass, but it wasn't as big, so it would probably just be because it's fatter.
Right, it wasn't as long as the blue whale.
Well, I mean, in paleontology, we usually measure size by mass. And yeah, here it is. This is Peru cetus.
Mm-hmm.
That is a chunk.
Yeah, it's one fat whale.
Ugh.
It looks more like a dugong, though.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a dugong.
Kind of.
I want them to find more Paragocetus. in the same areas of Peru. Then you find
How do
more
you spell that?
I'll have to write. Let me write it down. I can't spell that in my head. Hang on.
Or what was it called again?
Paragasitis. Might be saying it wrong. Pere. Let's see. Paragositis.
Oh, Paragositis.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it looks like an ankylocetus.
Yeah. It's a lot like that.
Yeah, here it is. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So Taylor was curious about how we think evolution works, basically.
It's just as starting at bacteria is you've got to deal with the cross-gene transfers. At that stage, it's a mess, and it's very difficult to explain.
Well, maybe I can simplify it a little bit. See,
Al Trucker, you should get on the screen. People love being offended. That makes for great content.
but what usually happens, what we think happened was long time ago, there were a lot of single-celled organisms. And like Beamsy hinted to there, when you're a single cell, it's easy for you to just come in contact with something else and share genetics. It happens a lot, even in modern bacteria.
Yeah.
And eventually, you have the first eukaryotes, which are what we are. We have defined organelles in the cells and a defined nucleus. Now, through some modern experiments, we can already see some ways in which multicellularity can evolve, possibly through trying to escape predation, or sometimes algae just doesn't separate correctly, so they'll stay attached to one another, and in some situations, that can be beneficial. So they'll become multicellular too.
I saw some experiment recently in an anaerobic environment. They got yeast to form a multicellular colony with like differentiated cells, like tens of thousands of cells.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But one big thing, yes, cell colonies, but they all share the same genetics. So they're all functionally one organism.
But the issue with talking about that is cellular biology needs to be explained before you can even start getting into evolution. Evolution doesn't take part until you've actually got a multicellular, sexually reproducing organism.
Well, no, there is evolution in single cells.
Not in the same way of what she was asking about, though, which is the problem of trying to explain it, because you're going from cellular biology to multicellular biology.
Fair. Here, let me see if I can. So, there's a great guy on YouTube named Forrest Valkai. He did a series called, what was his evolution series? The Light of Evolution. He basically went over how life got started and then how evolution went on. Let me copy the link to the first episode. I'll just go ahead and post it. Anyway, that is a great video as the start of a series that really goes in depth on evolution. But like the big thing I'd like to just say is evolution is not a random process. People like Kent Hovind and a lot of other creationists try to say it is, but it's not.
And I think it's interesting the first microfossil bacteria are associated with hydrothermal vent deposits.
Yeah, big nutrient sources.
Yeah.
But anyway, evolution isn't random. It's directed by the environment. The mutations that can happen can be random, but the selective effect the environment has is not. So, as long as an organism is in a particular environment, the population will gradually shift to become better accustomed to that environment. Kent tried to whack Forrest. Kent is not great at the science. He hasn't been for 3+ decades. And bacteria have existed for billions of years. There's still lots of single-celled bacteria today. They're super successful. Not all organisms became multicellular, but we are all descended from multicellular organisms, as are elephants. Oh, and we're just answering questions, Electric Monk. If anyone wants to come on and share comments on the debate or on the topic, feel free. Just for what it's worth, two geologist opinions here. Neither Beamsy or I feel that the flood of Noah was at all possible.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about chalk deposits that much, if at all. I don't recall, Sydney.
That's why if I get in the debate with McQueen, I'll be talking about coccolithopores and the coccolith deposits and how they actually compile, why we can actually see it happening now, where we're seeing deposits of white mud, and why it's not possible that it would have been deposited in 1 year, especially that you've got areas that are nearly 3 kilometers thick of it.
Yeah.
Also, Beamsy, are you watching Avatar?
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, okay. I thought the music sounded familiar. There's a similar sting in Avatar, but fair enough. Original or Brotherhood?
Brotherhood.
Ah, okay.
And it's not really me watching it, unfortunately. That's why I'm muting.
Ah, fair. Let's see. I specialize in dinosaurs. Nice girl. Just a bachelor's degree so far, but hoping to get into a master's program soon so I can actually specialize. Let's see. Yeah, so I guess, what would you say, Jackson, is your biggest problem with the idea of the flood?
My biggest problem with the flood, let's see, there are a lot to choose from a biological standpoint. The Rafflesia, I talked about that flower. It's a good argument because it has so many different parts that are independent. If one doesn't work, then the Rafflesia shouldn't exist today.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Did you see that part where I was talking about the flower?
I think I was busy ordering dinner then, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, the Rafflesia is a parasite of certain species of tetrastigma vines, and tetrastigma vines are parasites of certain species of trees. So,
okay.
So the seeds have to survive at sea. All 3 seeds of each species have to survive at sea for a year, and they'll have to land in the same place to grow again. And the odds of that are pretty slim.
All right, that makes sense.
I made the same argument for the Parasitaxis pine tree of New Caledonia, which is parasitic to another pine tree species, only one. Sorry. And they would have had to, of course, land on the same island in the same spot to grow again. And what are the odds of that if they even survived the flood?
I'd have to say probably pretty low.
Very low, yeah. And I didn't get through half of my presentation. I was on R and Raw's channel with the presentation. I don't know if you guys saw that, but you can see the full presentation there.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Thank you, Beamsy.
Oh, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
And sorry, some people are not believing us zoologists can just prove Noah's flood.
Well, I wasn't going for the geologic part of it. I was going for the zoologic part of it, part with the animals on the boat or in the sea. So That's where I was dismantling it from. But I'm not a dedicated geologist. I'm not a biologist, but I might as well be. I've dealt with animals since I was 3 years old. I just don't have a formal degree, but
you can be self-educated.
Yeah, I'm very educated in the field of biology, not as much geology. So I went at it from where I know the most of science, my area.
Fair.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, like, again, though, like with zoology and the global flood, there is not enough time for the biodiversity of life on Earth to have appeared since the flood supposedly happened.
Right. Or get distributed, let alone.
I mean, heck, we don't have enough time for all the proboscidean species.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, all the elephant and mammoth species we have on the fossil record.
One of my arguments, which I didn't get to, was the New Zealand frogs. They would have their own kind. They're very distinct. They have to basically, they live in cool, damp environments. They would have to cross from Turkey, arid regions, through the equator, through the supposed land bridge, which they say was there after the flood. Then they would have to go over the ocean to New Zealand in the span of 4,000 years and diversify into a few species. And that's, I mean, the odds of happening to wind up in New Zealand in 4,000 years are not good. But then diversifying into those species also makes it just incredibly, I mean, it's not possible.
Yeah. And let's see. No way we can disprove an event they willingly admit is partially supernatural.
That's true. I mean, he invoked miracles a bit. He did.
So we can't necessarily disprove it, but we can show that none of the evidence supports that hypothesis. Like, if you want to go by biology, by geology, nothing we can find supports the flood narrative. Everything we find points to the Earth being old and that there never was a global flood as described in the book of Genesis.
Especially not 4,000 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if you want to just go from a historical perspective, there are currently surviving cultures that have records going all the way through that time period. Ancient Egypt was in full swing. One of the dynasties of ancient Egypt, or of ancient China, was. Japan had I'm not sure if they had an empire already, but they had a system of governance at the time, and we still have records from that. Pretty sure there's some Mesoamerican stuff that dates back to that time.
Well, Taylor, plate tectonics also explains that.
Yeah. So let's say the flood did happen. There, knowing what we know of geological processes that we can see today, we know what we can probably expect. If the flood had happened, we should see, well, basically we should see one massive non-continuous layer of sediment all over the Earth.
Yeah, and I said that
we
early
don't
on.
see that. What we see are different layers separated distinctly. Like, let me get a picture.
But I was saying, like, for example, the Cretaceous tertiary boundary of iridium, you can't explain that in a flood. That makes no sense in a global flood scenario.
Yeah. And here we go. So, as an example, there have been lots and lots of sea creatures throughout history. In the modern day, we have whales, and according to geology or paleontology, we have whales going back to a few tens of millions of years. But we never see whales mixed in with other creatures that would have filled the same role in the environment, like a mosasaur. We only find these mosasaurs in the same or in rocks of the same age as when we find dinosaurs. We never find a whale in those rocks.
You never even find the silosaurid whales with modern baleen whales.
Yeah. And like there's stuff like this all throughout. I know that Hovind likes to rag on this, but throughout the geologic column, quote unquote, which isn't really a thing, but whatever. Through the rock record, we see stuff like this all over. If the global flood had happened, we should see all of these creatures mixed in together. And we just don't. We see them separated, even though they would have had the same capability to swim or the same capability to find food.
Take Arkansas, for example. Let me give an example. Basically, half of it north of this dividing line is mostly Carboniferous strata. South is mostly Tertiary and Cretaceous. South of it, you never find a trilobite fossil. North of it, you find trilobite fossils. That makes no sense in light of a global flood. It only makes sense in light of what we understand about great periods of time and evolution.
And most notably, you wouldn't have any varves.
True. Actually, I can go ahead and show that. Beamsy, would you like to explain what a seasonal varve is?
I'm just going to... I'll let you do that, because otherwise you'll have to deal with the background noise a bit more.
Fair. Okay. So what I'm showing here are a bunch of seasonal varves. Now, basically every light band here is probably going to be winter, and every dark band is probably going to be summer, though they can be flip-flopped in some places. So every light-dark pair represents 1 year of time. And we can check this. We can take super thin sections of the rock and look at them under a microscope. And like we can see that we only find, say, pollen type A in the dark varves only. And we only find pollen type B in the light varves. Again, only. And so we can by doing that, we can tell that these are seasonal formations. And we can just sit there and count. And we have modern varve counts, meaning that the layers are still being formed, that are over 60,000 years old.
And the other part is
we have one that's over 100,000.
And you've also got to take into account varves like that only form in freshwater, because the ionization effect of the salt water actually merges them together, so they actually don't create layers like that.
Interesting.
Yep. Like there is a specific lake in Japan called Lake Suigetsu. This is a small, isolated lake that is locked away from the ocean. There's no waves, or there's very few waves or anything like that. Very nice, calm, still water. And it has all these lines here. And again, we can tell each of these lines forms in a different season. And we know that for sure because we could still see them forming today. And we have a completely uninterrupted series of these layers going back about 110,000 years.
No, you cannot form layers rapidly. It doesn't work like that, because what they do that in is a circular flume chamber, and therefore it's not accurate to the way that the deposition actually works. They forcibly back and forth on the rotational speeds, and they actually force it to actually do that. In no way does that reflect how reality works. And to explain why it doesn't happen in saltwater is, if you've ever been to the ocean, have you seen the divide in where suddenly you're going from brackish water, which is full of silt, into perfectly clear water? At that
Mhm.
point is when all of the sediments have actually been ionized and have been settled down. If you dive down on that layer, it would actually continuously drop away and further at an angle. It's because the ionization effect of salt bonds with the sediment and causing it to become heavier and settle at a very rapid rate. And because being that it's ionized, it also bonds a lot easier, creating thick layers and not defined layers.
Yeah. And like, so another thing, layer has different meanings in geology. What places like Creation Research or Answers in Genesis like to do, and Hovind, is use one definition and not the other. And the definitions are mostly based on a matter of scale. So, like, you can have a layer that represents a single season, you can have a layer that represents an afternoon, and you can have a layer that represents 20 million years. You can form like a few inches or a few feet of sediment pretty easily. It's a lot harder to produce a massive layer of rock.
All right, guys, I'm pretty exhausted, so I'm going to drop out of here. But thanks for hosting an after show and watching the debate and all that. So,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, talk to you guys later.
Das Vidania.
That's
Go
good
on. And then there were two. I will say, folks, like I said, this is an open mic. Feel free to just hop on in. I got some food sitting next to me, and I can't really tuck into it when I'm one of the only people speaking.
No, the aspect of when you're talking that the tide's going in and out, that would just keep washing stuff away. For a layer to actually form effectively, it would need to cement in place before it can lithify. So by saying that tidal plumes are going in and out, where is the erosion effect? Why is there no true erosional effect within any of those layers? That's one of the biggest issues by saying that, the tides were affecting it during the flood. No, that doesn't explain how the layers were created. Because if it was purely tidal, then it would be salt water and it would actually not be established in such well-defined varves. The other aspect is it doesn't explain things like the ashfall layers that we get into it. The other thing is the incursions, the cleavages, the fusions, and the bends. None of those things can be explained by any of the amount of saving factors that people try and put into it. If you compare what you can get in a coastal area, the way that sediments are actually formed, they form very, very differently to what we actually experience in reality. So as much as you try and say that you've got hydrological sorting, it does not work. There's no way to do it. Some actually try and put it as, vertical deposition. Again, it doesn't work, because you've also got to take into account that for a layer to establish itself, it needs time to dry out and set, or be placed under immense pressure.
Yeah. Now let's see if the fountains of the Great Deep break open. First, those don't exist. Second, if something like that did happen, yes, we would see it. We have records of events where a lot of lava was suddenly extruded all at once. Like, we have those in the rock record. And they don't look like what the Bible describes at all. Also, hey Al.
Hey, how's it going?
Not terrible. What'd you think of the debate?
I missed the whole debate because I was so busy trucking and trying to get home because I got to start my shift again tomorrow morning at 5:00. But I have seen, McQueen debate a number of times. So I'm curious, did he bring a lot of new talking points? And I'm gonna have to find out which debate thing he was on and go
He was on.
watch it. I might listen.
He was against
It's
Jackson
in the
Rowe on
description.
Standing for Truth.
Oh, Jackson Rowe, I'm Standing for Truth. Okay, I'll check that out. I'll listen
Yeah,
to it
you just
tomorrow.
missed it.
Yeah, all right. Well,
I mean, it was McQueen in a debate. He always says the same stuff.
he usually gets out some chart paper and flips it around and goes on meaningless tangents. Not that I don't do the same thing, but he very rarely gets to a point that's salient and relevant and makes references to some sort of study he's done with a colleague of his that tries to hone in on some. I don't even find it coherent what it is they're trying to do to disprove everything, but it puts me in mind of there's another creationist scientist who's out there trying to say that because some sort of unicellular creature uses a flagellum to move around, that it disproves all of evolution or something. I just find these arguments, they pale in comparison, and I think for the young Earth creationists that are watching in the chat, the amount of scientific evidence that's documented, and not just documented, but vetted by qualified scientists in a system that really goes out of its way to make sure mistakes aren't made, and really like hones in on whether something is true or not, or it. And we don't prove things in science; we simply fail to disprove. And so when a consensus is reached, it's reached with such a level of I don't want to call it infighting, but there's actually there's a number of people trying to make you not look bad, but people that are trying to tear apart what you've done for the veracity of what the scientific method does. And there's a really good thing Erica's been doing, and I think some other people have spoken to it too about it. I think it's a paleontologist has found some new evidence of possible early hominids in a cave system or something like that in Africa, and they've been torn apart. Maybe rightly so, maybe not. Time will tell. But when you go and look at the layers of stratigraphy and start counting them and realize that you will reach 10,000 before you get through a couple of feet, and that it goes on for not just feet, but and I guess I'm switching back and forth as a Canadian, but there are dozens of meters of layers exposed by natural erosion that you can go and experience.
And the issue with that, Trucker, is careful when you're saying the counting layers, because there are some occurrences that can actually create multiple layers within a year. You've also got other things that can create layers within the layers. That's uplifting and upwelling, as well as other effects that can actually occur. So counting layers is not a very effective way. You have to understand how the layers are laid down. Then you have to understand that's far more important than just counting.
Well, no, absolutely. I'm just saying that if you were to just count them, you get so many of them that there's I don't know how you'd explain it. Not with the less than 10,000 years approach used by young Earth creationism. But yes, no, I'm aware of that some of the layers are put down seasonally, some of them are put down over the course of millennia, and there's, but it's just so obvious that these things have happened, and you can see as with an untrained eye that different events have happened. You can see when the like a stratigraphic layer, you can see where like there's river rock laid down for a number of years or seasons, and then you can see it transition to something else and harden up, and it's when you see that in real life, I find it really hard to understand how anyone could say that that stuff was put down. If you go down, to a 4,000 year ago location in the layers and say, well, that, all that was put down in one year-long event, that just doesn't make sense.
But then you get individual features, like in the middle of Texas, they have coral reefs as mountains that are 1,000 feet up from sea level, and they're in the middle of a desert. There's no way a flood could have created the conditions for coral to build a 2,000 meter tall pillar of limestone in a deluge.
No, that would be physically impossible, and I would think, knowing the nature of coral, which I don't know really well from firsthand experience, other than seeing that sort of thing, but it's very delicate living systems, and it leaves a mark, and it takes a tremendous amount of time to build. And some of the ones that are here on Earth, my understanding is are due to their size, they're known to be a certain age that goes back millennia.
Yeah, you got the fastest growing coral out there, referred to as staghorn corals. They can grow up to 5 centimeters a year, but they are called staghorn corals because they actually look like antlers when they're growing. For that to actually form into the limestone to be a base layer, first it has to break up, and then it becomes something called an oolec limestone. It's not an actual true limestone, but the limestone that you experience is more things like from brachial coral or brain coral. These particular corals, they take hundreds of years to grow. They take so long. And if you're so interested, you could drill into some of the larger samples and you could see the individual age that it takes, how long. It's about 1 or 2 millimeters per year at the most. These sort of corals. We
have lost an owl.
Yeah.
Sorry, those sorts of corals. And then I have something to say when you're done.
Those sort of corals are what is the majority of making up of those coral outcrops. Whereas in staghorn corals, you find, again, like I said, in something called an oobleck limestone. It's all good, trucker.
All right. And really quick, just want to address this. I don't go into my personal religious beliefs on here, okay? I don't necessarily deny a God exists. Heck, for all you know, I could be Christian. I just deny the evidence that I have seen for young Earth creationism. And really, I haven't seen much evidence at all. So, there you go. Let's see. ST, I am curious, what evidence would you accept for an, let's just say, an old Earth? Or what evidence would you accept that let's start with that. What evidence would you accept for an old Earth? And hello, Sam.
Hello, how are we?
All right. What did you think of the debate?
I thought it was all right. I caught bits and pieces of it. I thought it was good. It was nice and civilized, which is what I like to see. I don't like to see shouting matches. But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, I would agree with you guys. I think if there's going to be a debate, I think more up-to-date sources is generally the best thing to do in a debate, because if you're just using sort of same old arguments again and again and again, same old sources, that sort of thing, it can get old pretty quickly. But that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But one of my big problems with McQueen is, like, I don't think he ever cites anything younger than 2000. Or if he does, it's always from a very heavily biased source. That's my problem.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He's a lovely guy, absolute gentleman. He's really, really, he's a pleasure to interact with. But I definitely would agree with you. That's sort of one of the things that, well, for those who don't know in the chat, my name's Sam. I'm part of the creation research team. So I'm the head of media, technology, and photography. So I'm in charge of the live streams and all the techie stuff behind the scenes. But yeah, so I'm obviously speaking from a creationist background. But at Creation Research, what we do is we subscribe to all of the latest journals and all the different websites. New Scientist and I think biology and things. It's quite late here, so my brain isn't working properly. But yes, we subscribe to all of those. So we keep up to date with all the latest things that are coming out, and we do our own research as well into different topics and theories and evidences and things like that. Which I think is what if I'm to speak honestly, I think that's probably what sets us apart from a majority of younger creationists, whatever you want to call us. Organizations. We do active research and we look into different theories and different proposals and things like that, and we try and do as best as we possibly can, as detailed as we can, proper experiments that you can replicate again and again and again. It's not going to be like a one result and then that's the ultimate evidence we need, and we don't get it if we repeat it.
Maybe you can point me in the right direction. I've been trying to get someone who can show me the spectrographic analysis of the diamonds where they got the carbon-14 from, and I've been unable to find any data on that. No one has been able to ever show me anything that they've run it through at least an eye on a spectrograph. And I just need to see what they got out of it, because I've experimented a couple of years ago with diamonds using a spectrograph, and I understand how they could get carbon-14 in particular circumstances, and I'd like to see their data on it.
Is that something that we did, or is that just generally?
I don't actually know. No one's been able to tell me who did it and where it was. I've never been able to find any. I'm just trying to find the isotropic review of it, so that way I can at least see the spectrograph of it. Because if you can see the spectrograph of it, you can actually tell where it was to come from and how the carbon-14 was there and how much of it was there and if it actually existed. Because we did the experiments, but we actually used artificially created diamonds and blue diamonds, but we knew we were going to get carbon-14 from those. But that we did that for shits and giggles.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I hate to be bearer of bad news. I am not the person to be asking. I'm the tech guy. I'm not really the technically minded person. But I can try and make some inquiries. If you want, and see what surfaces. If I can look into something, I'm more than happy to do so. If you want to, I'll stick my email address in the personal chat between us. So that
you can send to the doctor. I know he's got his email in the actual public chat, so he can pass it on to me because we keep in contact pretty readily.
Okay, fair enough.
Also, a similar question. So you're part of the Creation Research Organization that has Joe Hubbard in it?
Yes. Yeah, Joe Hubbard,
okay.
And John Mackay and Dr. Diane Eager. We've got Craig Hawkins, okay. Dr. Glenn Wilson as well in the state.
Okay, good. Just your personal opinion. Do you think any dinosaurs had feathers?
My personal opinion, Uh,
I mean, if you just want to say I don't know, that's fine.
I honestly, I don't really want to give a definitive answer because my brain is just fried. Because I'm probably gonna have to jump off again in a second anyway, because I need to go to bed because I work in the morning.
That's
But
fair.
from what I have seen, in terms of, I do my own research as well, like in my own personal time, because I just find the topic fascinating. Hence why I'm involved with creation research. In my own personal research, as well as one of the things we do as well, is that we look at things with fossils. We have a lot of fossils in our own collection. I've handled dinosaur bones. I know it's like every 5-year-old's dream to hold dinosaur bones and things like that. So we've got proper dinosaur artifacts and things like that. And I don't think I have seen, to the best of my recollection anyway, any sort of, I don't want to use the word valid, but that's the word that's coming to mind, instances of dinosaurs with clear feathers. I mean, people may say Archaeopteryx, but then again, the Natural History Museum has clearly defined Archaeopteryx as a bird. That's not creationist.
As a bird and a dinosaur, but fair.
Yeah. Well, the thing. When Joe went to the Natural History Museum in London, he asked about, because they had they've got the animatronic Deinonychus on the stand. You probably may have seen them. I don't know. And they put feathers on them. And Joe asked the question of the curators, why have they got feathers? And they said, oh, because they have feathers. And they said, oh, has any fossils been found of Deinonychus with feathers? No, but we assume they had feathers because they turned into birds. So to me, that just sort of comes across a little dishonest.
So I understand that, and I did hear Joe say that as well. Personally, if you guys try to keep on top of the current research, I'm not going to call Joe dishonest, but honestly, he seems to be very misinformed on the topic. On screen right now is a small dinosaur called Sinosauropteryx. It was covered head to toe in feathers, and we can tell this not just by looking at it here. We can also tell looking at it at a microscopic view. We can tell looking at it with lasers. We can see preserved organelles that actually tell us what the color of this dinosaur was. You might want to talk to your scientists about that, because they are very, let's just say, outdated on that topic.
I'll pass it on to the team.
Thank you. I'm just going to say, I don't share my personal religion on here. I don't really care what someone's personal religion is.
I don't want you to. That's the last thing. This is the thing which I sort of. Sorry to interrupt. I'll let you carry on in a second. I'm just trying to get this in before my brain decides to give up. What we try to do anyway at Creation Research, with our live streams and with any interactions that I have or we have with general public, we try and be as honest and transparent as possible, as well as pleasant as possible, and have a welcoming atmosphere. And so it's never my intention to to force people to say things against their will. It's no skin off my nose. What your personal life is your personal life, mate. So I'm not going to be someone who's going to be like, but you need to say X, Y, Z.
So I was just trying to say, you guys are a Christian organization. I get that. That is fully your right, and I support you in that. I dislike the spreading of misinformation. And your scientists are using a lot of outdated sources to tell your audience that no dinosaurs have been found with feathers. And I think that actually is 30 years out of date this year.
Okay. All right. I'll. It may be that we've done an article. What was the dinosaur again?
So this is Sinosauropteryx.
Was it Sinosauropter or Sinosauropteryx?
There it is. Sinosauropteryx is this dinosaur here.
Okay.
They've been on a couple streams with Donnie from Standing for Truth where they've talked about this.
Okay. All right. Cool. I will pass that on to the team to have a look into, and I hope that we can have an answer. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to say anything confirming or denying anything. And yeah, but I'm not trying. I know it can come across as a bit sort of like evasive and scapegoaty and saying, "Oh, I'm avoiding questions." I don't know, and I don't want to say that I know because I don't.
Sure, and I know it's late for you too, so if you need to go get to bed, that's totally fine. Thank you for joining us, though.
All right,
You seem like a nice guy. Nice to meet you.
And do you know if you if you can put the link I put in there, that's an oviraptor, and you'd have to explain why it was preserved in that position because it was actually looking after a clutch of eggs.
Mm-hmm.
If it was actually looking after it like that, without feathers, that would never work, and those eggs would have died. What? So there would have to be a reason why it was actually looking after it like that.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cheers for that. I'll get the team to look into it. I mean, because what we do as well is if I can do a quick plug for some, not that the audience will probably be interested. So we're almost at 4,000 subs. We're like 3 away. So if people, even if you're an atheist or agnostic or whatever, if you want to hit a subscribe to get us over to that 4K mark, that'd be really greatly appreciated. But we also do, if you go on to if you search creation fact file, you should be able to find our site, or if you search Ask John Mackay, so that's MACK. It's late, I can't spell. You could probably find it on, if you go to creationresearch.net and then click on Q&A site or fact file, you should be able to see. And we do a lot of up-to-date articles on there. I should really be a bit more informed than what I am, but I'm probably embarrassing myself and the organisation here. But anyway, never mind.
Put it down to being tired.
You have a good night.
I'll put it down to being tired. Yes, we'll do that. All right. Thanks for being so graceful, guys. It was a pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Have a good one. All right, and then I did see in the chat. So, yes, Sinosauropteryx is from China. Nice girl. It is from China. There's a lot of other dinosaurs that aren't, and just because it's from China doesn't mean it's a fake or forgery. The fossil has been looked at by many people all over the world and confirmed to be real. But just in case you want one that's not from China, pretty sure Oviraptor here from Mongolia, I think. This is a terrible photo, but this is a trace fossil of a theropod dinosaur from the early Jurassic with feather traces right next to the arm. Oh man, where's is this a better? No, that's not. Can't find a better photo, but this is one of them. And lastly, here is a Ornithomimus. So this is from North America, also preserved with long filamentous feathers. Never implied it was fake. Sorry, that's usually what people imply when they say from China, ... But anyway, we have evidence of feathers, both direct and indirect, from a lot of different dinosaurs. We even have some of them in non-theropods. As an example, we have a dinosaur here called Psittacosaurus. It did not have feathers per se, but it did have a similar projection of coarse filaments going up from its tail. And that might have even been present in later ceratopsians.
You just want to bring it up so you can talk about the butthole paper again.
I'm not talking about the butthole paper again. You brought it up. Oh boy. Anyway, I mean, this has been a fun little after show. Think probably gonna draw it to a close because I am hungry. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a good evening. Please like, subscribe if you like. Go back and like Donnie's stream, of course. This stream wouldn't exist without his. But yeah, have a good one.